Do you run your own freelance business? Or maybe you're thinking about picking up some business on the side? Well, then you need FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the quickest and easiest way to get invoices out to your clients. It's easy to use. It works anywhere, available from any device, on the desktop, iPhone, iPad, Android, and all of your data is backed up and secure. And it makes it really easy to get organized and get paid. You'll be tracking time, logging expenses, and invoicing your clients in no time. You can also save time billing, freeing up several days per month to focus on the work that you love, and you get paid faster. FreshBooks customers are paid on average 5 days faster because there's a link on the invoice that says pay me now. And it's a great way to grow your business. Plus, FreshBooks is offering a 30-day trial. That's right, 30-day trial if you try them out. So go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Views on Vue. This week we have Erik Hanchett.
Hello.
I'm Charles Max Wood from devchat.tv, and this week we're going to be talking about Nuxt. That's something that Erik here has been playing with. Do you want to just briefly go into what you're doing with it and what your use case is?
Yeah. So I've been just kind of looking everything in Vue lately, and kind of the latest, greatest thing that a lot of people are talking about is Nuxt.js, which is as they put it as their tagline, is a framework for creating universal VueJS applications. So, of course, you can use Vue CLI and you can use Vue in a lot of different situations. Nuxt gives you a little bit more flexibility, and it's kind of derived from Next.js. So if you guys are familiar with the React server-side rendered framework called Next.js. So this one is more of a server-side rendered framework for Vue. And you can do a couple things with it. You can use it. It kind of, when you run it, it starts like a little express server, so you can do your server side stuff inside the application. But you can also use, as a static site generator, you can actually deploy it that way too, using Nuxt generate. So it has a couple of different options on there. So it's pretty simple to get started. They have a starter template, which you can use you can use it just directly with Vue CLI to create a project, but you can also include it in your own apps already. If you have like an Express app, you can actually use Nuxt inside of it. So it has some flexibility there. So it has everything you would kind of expect for a server-side rendered framework here. You have obviously uses Vue with Vue files, has code splitting. I'm kind of reading off some of the features here's listed. ES6, ES7 transpilation, preprocessor, SASLess, HTTP2, push headers ready. I went ahead and I created like a little sample app for it. I haven't used it in production or for a client, but what I was working on was just to like talk to an API, the iTunes API, and then see how I can get the data back, how I can do it on using the server. It's kind of the server side part of it, and then also how I can do it from the client side and seeing the differences. And I was impressed. It worked pretty well for what I was doing with it.
That's cool. So when we say universal, we're talking about basically server-side rendering, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where they're going for when they call it universal Vue.js applications. They call it abstracting away the client-server distribution, so it doesn't feel like you're writing client and then the server. It's kind of all in one package.
Right. So one thing that I wonder about a little bit with this, and this comes out of conversations that I've had in other ecosystems with their universal apps, is if there's an event that occurs that is, generates something one way or the other, how does it track that while it's doing the server-side rendering before it actually loads the JavaScript?
Yeah, so you have access to the context. So in other words, you have access to the request and response objects as the page is loading. So it has hooks in there, so you can talk to it, and you can then do something with it. So you can either change the response, You can change the type of requests that are happening. So it does it that way. And there's a couple of ways it does it inside Nuxt. And the ways that I know it does it with is you can have a special hook inside one of your Vue.vue files, or you can actually add middleware inside your Nuxt, which is kind of in the Node.js world. And the middleware will be used to, you can assign it to different parts of your Vue application to do different things that you like to do when the page is rendered, that is.
Cool. And a lot of people, from what I understand, tend to use this kind of thing for like SEO or just to get a faster page speed because you can cache the server-side rendered stuff. Which of those is the one that appeals to you the most?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea between server-side rendering. I mean, there's debate. I mean, if you're listening to this now, there's still debate. If you use a single-page application or SPA framework, that first initial load can be slow. I mean, it should be super quick, but all that JavaScript still needs to be downloaded onto the client. And there's different ways of combating that problem of that first initial page load. And one of is server-side rendering, where the server actually sends the HTML first to the client, and then in the background, it downloads the JavaScript in the background. So that way you get a quicker refresh as soon as the page loads. And some of the reasons behind that, obviously the page load times, but also SEO. Some people think that when the crawlers go through and they search all these different websites, that they don't efficiently go through sites that are just JavaScript apps. That maybe there's problems SEO wise when that happens. Then there's debate that no, that's not a problem at all. I tend to think that it's a good thing to have is to move to this type of server side rendered technology, because I think that you eliminate that problem with the different search engines and the crawlers and going through your website. But I think it's still a little bit debatable. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is open for debate, but I think there are other benefits to it as well. So, you can get it. You can also check the rendering for your testing without actually having to run the entire app.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. There's probably definitely more benefits to server-side rendered technologies in general.
Yeah. So how hard is it to set up?
Yeah, so when I was setting it up, and I'm still learning, caveat here, but yeah, it was really easy installation. All I had to do was I had Vue CLI already installed, which is just, you can download, use npm and install it globally or yarn. And then it was just a Vue init and then the template, the starter template, and it just downloads it. And once you get it downloaded, you can just change directories into it and run npm install. That's the easiest way. Of course, like I said, you can integrate it other ways, of course. And then once I got it running, it's going to be just kind of like you create a normal Vue application. The changes and differences I saw was the directory structure. There's a couple of ways you can do routing in the application, but one of the ways that they recommend is you have this file tree. So you kind of create a pages, like if you wanted a pages folder or pages route, you create a pages folder inside your routes, inside your route folder. And then you create an index.vue, and then that would render it correctly, or you have pages/user. So it's a little bit different on the way it does the routing. I think you can actually extract that out and create your own router file, just like you would normally do inside a normal Vue app. But that's one way to do it. And then I know there's some changes too there's new Vue CLI 3.0 that's coming out soon. It's in beta right now. It just went from alpha to beta, and they have this idea of having this layouts structure where you have this layouts folder and it gets applied to all your different Vue components. So that's a little bit different if you're using. That's also included in Nuxt. And it's in Vue 3.0, but if you're still using the latest Vue 2, I think it's 2.9.3 right now, then they don't have that concept. Of course, it's easy to add it. So it's a little bit different that way. But going to answer your question, getting up and running was really quick and simple and easy. I actually just today, last night, I just tried to play around with their static generation that was happening. So the static generation was really simple. You just run one command. It creates your dist folder. And then I just copied it and pasted it into a GitHub Pages. And it worked right off the bat. So it was really easy. And there was slight configuration you have to do if you're familiar with GitHub Pages, if you have it as a repository. But, it was simple. It worked really good. And that's, what I messed around with it yesterday.
Right. How do you tell it what to render? Because a lot of times what I find with these apps is you have like the routing. And so you have like, if you're doing a book library or something, right? So it's books/ID or books/slug. And so there's not always a clear way to tell the renderer what to render.
Yeah, so you can pass parameters back and forth between the routes. And the way you do that is in the directory structure, you put an underscore in the directory. So you would have like _slug or _ID. And then that way you can pass using Nuxt link. There's a few ways to do it, but you can basically pass information from one route to the other and you can also do query parameters and everything like that as well.
Right.
So that's not too bad.
Very cool. Is this something that you're going to put into your book?
Yeah. So I actually have a whole. I do have a chapter on. Those who don't know, I'm writing a book on free plug VueJS in action, which is published by Manning. On one of my chapters, I have a whole section on Nuxt and how to set up an app in it and how to get started. And it was, pretty simple and straightforward. I go over how to use middleware. And actually, I'm thinking about creating a video course on it too at some point, just because I think a lot of people are talking about Nuxt and as a way to create Vue apps, and I definitely want to try to teach people what I know as much as I can. Like, I'm not a super expert on it, but I think I understand some of the things pretty well on it.
That makes sense. So this isn't something you're looking to use in your day job then?
We do use some tooling in my day job, different tools for different things. I think I might, definitely, that's a work in progress there. So we're, I'm definitely trying to push more Vue tools that we can run. We do a lot of stuff in Angular and other frameworks. But yeah, I think this is for personal projects. I think I'm one of my personal projects I want to really get done is my website, which is an old GitHub. Actually, it's not even GitHub Pages. It's an old Ghost blog that I haven't been updating in a long time. So I'm trying to think like what should I do with it. I might move to WordPress. I know some people out there have done things where they've created static sites and had like a headless WordPress in the back end. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I think I might use this just for fun little projects here and there. Maybe I'll recreate some of the front page of my website using it, just because it's really you can get up and running pretty quickly. I know Cher rewrote some of her site, which unfortunately isn't here right now, and in Nuxt, because it was just really simple to get up and running and do everything she wanted, and then push it up somewhere.
Gotcha.
Have you touched it yet?
Nuxt? No, yep. I haven't. I'm still at the stage of learning a lot more about this framework and React because we just started those shows for those frameworks. So I'm looking forward to digging in some more, but I haven't gotten to the point where I've done Universal with either one.
Yep. I had a question on my forum the other day. Someone was talking about Nuxt, and they're like, well, Nuxt has a static generator to create static generated sites, and that's great, but there was some questions like, well, why can't you just do that with the Vue CLI? And you certainly can create static generated sites with Vue CLI. You can't create server rendered sites using Vue CLI. You can with some modification additions of some SSR plugins. But from what I've seen, is that if you use Vue CLI and you're creating a static site, you can build the site, but it doesn't. You do need some more configurations to like push it up to GitHub pages and other things. And that's what something with Nuxt is nice. I didn't have to do any configurations. I just ran one command and just copied the files over to like something like GitHub pages, and it just worked.
So you had to build it with the server rendering and then copy the output over to GitHub pages?
Yeah, I mean, you build it. It's basically, if you're running it as a server-side rendered app, you won't have access. Well, if you're running a server-side rendered app, then you have access to like request and response objects. So you can really kind of take the server-side rendered information and do things with it that you want. However, if you create a static site, then you don't have access to that. So you obviously can't do server-side rendering if you create the static site to it, but you still have the benefits of it being just kind of a simple app that you can load quickly and deploy quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Basically just your index.html and some other JavaScript files with it.
Yeah, I know that GitHub pages support specific not server-side rendering, but static site rendering engines like Jekyll. And so if you check in a Jekyll project, then it'll run the build for you. And that's what I was kind of wondering is, will it just go, okay, run the server-side rendering, save all the pages, and off we go? Or, if you had to run it yourself and then copy it up.
Yeah, you build it and just you generate it and just copy it up. I know Jekyll is really popular. On the React side, Gatsby is getting a lot of talk right now. That's a super fast static site generator for React. I think all three of these are kind of being talked more about in the community of ways to create these, simple sites.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think initially, like when we had the kind of the web dev revolution, for lack of a better way of putting it, where people were using things like Django and Rails, and, it was like, we can make it do this other thing that was hard and now is less hard. But now I'm seeing a huge move towards simplicity. And so the static site generators are becoming very interesting to people because it's, I can put this out there. I don't have to worry about it getting hacked. I don't have to play any games making it run. I don't have to set anything up for it to run on the server or the client. And, it loads fast. And anyway, there are a whole bunch of reasons why people are going that way.
Yeah, and it definitely is not for everyone. I mean, if you need to talk to a server, and you're going to have to think of like how you do that. I mean, do we need a serverless function somewhere? Or if we're, do we need to put in some hooks or plugins or something like that? And obviously, clients want, if you have a client and they're looking for a website, they probably want to have an easy way to do updates to it. So static site may not be as easy. There's some things like I mentioned before, like a WordPress with a headless WordPress, or I think there's Contentful, which is like an API, like a CMS, that you can just add to your back end. Like CMS is a back end API, and you could try to have your front end talk to it. So there's definitely ways. We could probably have a whole episode on static site generators and what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a few others that I've heard of are type.io. People are doing stuff with Firebase for a lot of those. So, lots of interesting things going on that front for sure.
Yep.
So, tell me a little bit about your book since I've got you here for a few minutes.
Sure. Yeah. So it's pretty much a beginner to intermediate book on Vue.js. I do touch on a little bit more advanced topics, but if I touch on them, I usually give some more resources on them. We go everything from how do Vue files work, how does Vue work in general, and then we kind of move on, like how do all the different type of directives work. And then we move on to more complicated stuff not more complicated, just more in-depth stuff like how you use Vue CLI, how do you create single file components. Then we look at the server and we look at Vuex, which is the state management system behind Vue. It's sort of based on Redux. And we finished the book with testing. So I try to cover all the major factors. Of course, routing too is included in there. So I try to hit up all the different major factors of Vue.js. It's me and another author, actually Benjamin Listwan, helped Benjamin started off just a couple chapters at the beginning, and then I've worked on some of the later chapters. So between us, I think we have a pretty solid book on how to get started with Vue and how to get up and running quickly. And that's one of the nice things about Vue is it's really easy to get started because it has especially for teams, it's easy to ramp up. And even if a team doesn't have much knowledge on Vue, they can jump in quickly and understand the basics and get something going quickly, which I like.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing that I keep hearing from a lot of people is that, well, Vue is just so easy to get started with. And that's why you see people moving, away from other systems or adopting it when they, have the opportunity to change. So.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing, I think, in this community right now. We the two big dogs, just in the front end frameworks. And I'm not discounting jQuery or anything else, but
right,
just talking about like single page front end frameworks. React and Angular, obviously, some of the most popular. Maybe you could argue the most popular would be React, and so a lot of these communities are pretty stringent and they don't want to change to other new technologies. But I think our podcasts and just kind of getting more of the word out that there's other ways to go. You don't have to use React and Angular is a good way to go, because there's always more than one way to do something. And sometimes, sometimes it's just easy to jump in with you and get that up and running.
Yep, absolutely. The other thing is that we're, at least in the circles that I move in, I'm seeing quite a bit of interest in Vue as an alternative where it's, here's how we do things with this system. And, like I said before, some people are really coming at it from the standpoint of, hey, this is how we do things in a simpler way. Or there's some other appeal, that React or Angular don't fill, and so it's interesting just to see where people end up.
Yep, yeah, and I think if you listened to maybe the first or second episode when we had Evan Yu on, he probably talked a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Which unfortunately I was not able to make. I wish I could have made, but I think Sharon, Joe took care of that pretty well.
Yeah, I couldn't make it to that one either. It was my wife's birthday when they recorded it, so. Happy wife, happy life, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, anyway, well, why don't we go ahead and wrap this one up a little bit early, and, next week we will have a guest and, have a little bit more to put together on this. In fact, let me just jump in and I can tell you what we have planned for the next few weeks. So next week, we are talking to Chris Fritz. We're going to be talking either about building enterprise Vue apps or enjoying the Vue in large teams. The week after that, Joe's going to talk to us about the Framework Summit. The week after that, we're looking at creating a Vue plugin. And then the week after that, Gleb Bomatov is going to come and talk to us about Cypress.io and testing with that tool. And then the week after that, we have Nick Bazile, and he's going to talk to us about getting started with TDD and Vue. So anyway, we have some really interesting shows lined up. Bunch of other ideas that other panelists have thrown out there as well. So we'll be reaching out to some of those folks as well. So definitely keep an eye out for those.
For sure.
All right, Eric, do you have some picks for us?
For you, the listeners of JavaScript Jabber, Loot Crate is offering an opportunity to save 10% on any new subscription at lootcrate.com. Just enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings. Loot Crate is one of my favorite things. Every month I get a box in the mail, costs less than $20, and it comes with all kinds of goodies. I have stuff from, just looking at my shelf, Batman, Spider-Man, Ninja Turtles, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and much, much more. So if you're a geek, a gamer, anything like that, and you want cool stuff to put around your office, cool t-shirts, comic books, etc., then definitely check out Loot Crate. To save 10% on your new subscription, go to lootcrate.com/Ruby. Again, that's lootcrate.com/Ruby to save 10% on any new subscription. Enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings.
Since we're talking about static generators, there's staticgen.com. It's just a list of all the different static generators out there. It also lists the number of stars that they have and the number of forks and everything with that. So you kind of get an idea of what are people using, like Jekyll, and Hugo. I think that's a Go version of the static generator. Gatsby is obviously the React one we talked about earlier. Nuxt is listed on there. So yeah, check that out, staticgen.com.
Nice. I've got another one that I'm using, and it's a static generator that publishes into a book, like an ebook instead of a website. It's called Softcover, softcover.io. And so I have my course out there on how to find a job, and you can definitely check that out at getacoderjob.com. And I'm writing a companion manual to it. And so if you're interested in anything like that, you're trying to find a job, you want some pointers, you want my experience helping you get that, you can check it out. But it outputs to PDF, EPUB, and Mobi. And so you can read it on any of the popular e-readers out there. And I've really liked it. So it's written by my friend Michael Hartle. If you're in the Ruby community, he wrote the Ruby on Rails tutorial and things like that. So anyway, really digging that. And yeah, where do they get your book, since we talked about that?
Yeah, you can just, if you go to, probably the easiest way to do it is to go to manning.com/books/vue-js-in-action. That's the URL. Or you can just go on my Twitter account. It's linked on my Twitter, just twitter.com/Erik, ERIKCH.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Sorry it was a short one, folks, but we will be back next week.
All right. Thanks.
Yep. Bye.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.